That's Mike.
And that's Toya, and this is Tech Beats and Bytes. How are you doing today? How are you doing?
I am good on this Wednesday. How are you doing? Really? I
It's
mean, that's how I'm feeling. I'm just, we got to show up for the show.
I mean, I'm for the show. I'm excited, but
Got to give people the energy.
you asked me how I'm feeling. That's two different things. I feel all right. I don't know. Still feel like I'm mad at Charlemagne. I had a conversation with some other people offline this weekend, so
Uh-huh.
it just made it worse. Some people that know him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, dude's just
Mm.
trash. I
Well,
am
you
not
done
here
you
to
done
tear.
teased it now. You got to give a little bit. You can't just drop that real quick and then not share a little bit.
You know what? I just made the whole thing that I'm not here to tear other black men down. So I'm trying. I'm trying to live by the post for at least a week or so.
Well, what was the consensus? What was the consensus? We're not trying to be messy, but what was the consensus?
That he's used to using people when he needs something from them, and that's just the way he moves. So
Mm.
that's where I have to leave it at. I'll tell you more offline, but he's used to using people. So I guess it's just a thing that he kind of does. But how are you doing?
Got my hands full because we're about to be on HSN next week. So we are
Oh
in
wow,
prep
that's exciting.
mode. Yeah, on Tuesday and Wednesday, they're doing a whole big fine takeover for all the brands that were selected and are ready to launch on air. So we'll be one of the brands featured on Tuesday and Wednesday. Tuesday will be on at 7 a.m. for their beauty show. That's in the morning. And then
Okay.
on Wednesday, we'll be on for the same beauty show at 7 a.m. and then again at 1 p.m. So things change all the time, but we'll post out more information as we get a little bit closer to the day, and we know for sure what our times will be.
Are you excited?
Yeah, excited, little nervous, just because you never know what can happen. But yeah, no,
It'll
I'm
be fun.
excited. It'll be good. It'll be good.
Oh, so the people are here for the news. So let's get right into it. We'll start off with some
Get it.
positive news. Reddit has appointed Michael Seibel to Ohanen's vacated board seat. Just in case you guys don't know, Ohanen is Serena Williams' husband. Um, the Reddit co-founder Alex Ohanen stepped down from his position on the board last week, urging the company to fill his seat with a black candidate. The company has appointed Michael Seibel, who is a venture capitalist, advisor, and entrepreneur in his place. Seibel is well known for promoting diversity and inclusion. He was actually here a year or two ago during Black Tech Week and did a speaking engagement at Venture Cafe at CIC. After having a chance to meet with him, I would have to say I'm personally happy with this decision. Although I do not use Reddit at all, I think it is a
Mm.
very annoying platform. It's hard for me to follow, but I know it is very instrumental in the tech world. Siebel has an impressive tech world resume. Previously founded Justin TV. Justin TV was the precursor to Twitch. People in the gaming world and I would say online streaming content in general know about Twitch, as well as mobile video startup Social Cam. Um, I don't know. Dante, we got white noise, but I don't know how bad it is, Toy.
Yeah.
Um, he is currently a partner at a venture capital firm, Y Combinator, and CEO of Startup Accelerator Program, YC. Uh, okay, so it's all right. The move, though, if people don't know, it came at a pretty horrible time for Reddit. They have faced increasing criticism in recent weeks over the way it handles hate speech. Hundreds of moderators wrote a damning open letter to CEO Steve Huffman last week demanding change and calling for greater diversity amongst his staff. Nothing new for tech.
Mm.
Um, and Ohana subsequently resigned as a board member, saying he will use his future gains on his Reddit stock to serve the black community, chiefly to curb racial hate. So, how do you feel about this? I'm just not shocked that you continue to have a lack of diversity, but I think it's pretty dope that he's taking his gains and putting it towards a very specific use to help with these issues that's going on.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And And with what Serena's been doing in terms of helping to fund other small businesses and focusing on Black women businesses, it just speaks to sort of, I think, what they're collectively trying to do
Hmm.
together.
Yeah.
And when you look at Reddit, Reddit has a bit of a history of being a place for sort of very insensitive conversations, especially around race. So I
Hmm.
think Reddit is one of those environments that needs a bit of a makeover. And this change in office could possibly help to do some of that. I too don't use Reddit a lot. Um, I don't. I think I may have been on the site twice,
Right.
but to your point, it does play a very important role for a lot of people when it comes to community, sharing information, collaborating, and connecting. And just to see more of us in that particular space may actually help to sort of change and elevate the platform to be a little bit more inclusive. Because when I think about Reddit, I don't think of it as a place for me to be, honestly.
I agree. Totally agree. And I don't expect Michael to go in and fix all these things, but I think he would at
No,
least give hope to the opportunity to have these things fixed.
exactly. And I think with people seeing him in that position, more, people of color may decide to check Reddit out, right? Because
Hmm.
now it's in the news in a different way. So it
Right.
just opens it up to a little bit more, what is Reddit? Let me check it out if they haven't seen it before.
So we normally get a lot of people on, you have to pay attention to data and structure, and we get our most viewers in the beginning and then they share the content. So if you're getting ready to share or you're here, this is the time you want to be here, especially if you're from South Florida. So a lot of people saw that it was coming. I still haven't done all the research I wanted to, but I just have a question. Where is South Florida's tech community that was doing all this stuff for diversity and inclusion? Where are y'all at? Yeah, that silence is pretty much how it feels. Um, I'm just wondering, does inclusion not include? Is it just for hiring, or is inclusion only for civil, or not for civil rights? Because it seems like a lot of people had things to say, or they want to say things, and they're thinking about posting things, but I haven't really seen a lot of activity from South Florida. So I'm wondering what's going on. So I was hoping, Toya, maybe you could help me or tell me what the hell is going on with the people of South Florida that's not speaking up in this time that we're going through.
Yeah, I don't really have a good concrete answer. I
Okay.
will say, I think because this is still pandemic time and a lot of our gathering places are not places for us to connect. So
Mm-hmm.
some of that may be what you're seeing, why there's not a lot of sort of the coming together of minds and activity here in South Florida. But then also when you think about it, South Florida has a personality.
Right.
And I don't know if South Florida has the personality to get in it like that, right? I think we move a little bit differently than say a Chicago, a New York, or LA. So looking for South Florida maybe be that. Um, that may just not be what the masses say they want to do and who they want to be. I
So
just know. Go ahead. What you got?
no, no, go ahead, finish it.
No, I was just gonna say, when you're thinking about some of the rallies and Dream Defenders and what Valencia is doing and just different people who have been a part of this, they're still very much a part of
Absolutely.
it. So yeah, so I don't, I think that the players who were about this from the beginning are still about it now, and they will continue to be about it as it moves forward.
So the reason why I wanted to give you the first chance to respond is, of course, you're from South Florida and you live here, but I'm just wondering, are some of you out there sitting around scared to speak up because you're afraid of the impact to your brand? Because somehow Miami Foundation, RFL, has been there for 2 weeks, and she spoke up, put money where her mouth is, made a commitment to 10 different organizations, and put up $100,000. But she's very vocal. And I'm just wondering, if RFL can do that within 60 days of her job, what the hell have these other organizations been doing for the last 6 years? And the silence is because I'm waiting to see if somebody comes into the comments
All
and
right, in the
enlightens
comments.
me. Because I'm not seeing it. And I also want to know in South Florida, especially in Dade County, do you realize that these issues extend beyond 595? Because there seems to be a lot of Cubans and Cuban Americans that don't realize once you leave, well, you can just go to Brevard County if you want to see how you'll be treated differently. Once you leave Dade County, the world isn't the same world you think it is for you. Actually, you might want to hit up some Cubans or Puerto Ricans in New York and ask them how they're treated once you get outside of the 305 zip code and area codes. So, I see these people showing up at Emerge Americas, and I see them showing up at, these Latinx events. And I'm particularly talking about white people in the tech industry in the South Florida tech community for diversity and inclusion. But I never see these people showing up at Black Tech Week or any of the digital grass events. So I'm just curious if it's about inclusion, because I could always hear somebody saying, I remember one of the statements at one of our events, and somebody said, well, I'm not sure if I'm welcome, because it was called Black Tech Week, so I'm thinking it's just for black people. Emerge America and these other events make it pretty clear that it's for Hispanic or Latinos, but yet white people still feel comfortable being there. So I'm just really curious, when are y'all gonna come out of the little hole that y'all have dug into, or when do you leave the beach and come to the mainland and actually do something with those platforms that you have versus just inboxing and texting people that you want to help and you don't know what to do. You know what to do. You got people in power that aren't doing anything. I'm not going to go that far into it until later on because someone needs to hear this, but I'm not going to do that right now. So that's just a little teaser for what we're going to get into later. But I'm just really curious. So I was wondering, maybe you saw something I didn't. I don't see everything. I'm not everywhere in the internets. I'm not everywhere in these streets, but I'm just wondering. Maybe you saw something I didn't see. Maybe somebody stepped up that I didn't notice. But just curious of what's been going on.
No. I haven't seen anything outstanding. But you bring up a great point about the support and the interest in Emerge Americas, right? From those who are not Latinx. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that, I think, comes from the platform that Emerge Americas has built. And people see it as an opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. And there's an interest in doing business in Latin America and the Caribbean, because if you're in Miami, then you see Miami as the gateway to those regions and to those countries. So Emerge America is like your place to then go and talk about that from a business perspective. So there's an interest there, which then speaks back to the whole issue that we're seeing now, which is why so many people are like, oh my God, what can we do to support Black business? Black business has been here all along. Black business has been great. We're not just getting great. But you didn't see interest. You didn't have an interest in it because you did not see how you could get any gains from doing business with us outside of us being a consumer.
So that's a key word you just used, the basis of gains. The whole aspect of diversity and inclusion is almost like love in a relationship. You should love unconditionally, and you kind of don't unconditionally. And you don't really expect anything in return, and you don't always expect something in return because at some point you have to carry that relationship to make it work. So is it just fair to say that a lot of these organizations that claim to want inclusion or claim to want diversity was just like Intel with their $300 million, and they were pretty much just trying to fulfill a void because they were being called out? Or did they have general interest? Because now if there's not any gain, it seems to be no interest, and there's not any recognition, and there's no awards, there's no merit, there's nothing to base or gauge diversity and inclusion for an organization. So it feels like if they can't gain anything from it, they're really not doing anything about it.
Yeah. Basically what I was just saying. Yep. Right.
I just want y'all to know we see you. And if you're worried, you should be worried because at this point we're collecting data. And the thing is, we always tell people once we start collecting data, it's no longer emotional, it's all factual. And it's kind of like one of those things, like you shouldn't be worried when somebody is screaming and yelling. When you should get worried is when they're calm and collective and they're communicating. That's when you should be worried. So just a little heads up, a little alley-oop for you. Speaking of online hate, advocacy groups have especially those that are fighting racism have been targeted. So this is one of the things in tech. There have been a number of digital attacks. This has all been reported by Cloudflare, the web security and content distribution company. Cloudflare saw a huge uptick in cyber attacks, particularly cyber attacks advocacy organizations that are fighting racism. This is where it becomes sickening. You're attacking the people that are fighting racism, so there's no way that you can deny that you're racist because you want the people to stop fighting racism. I don't understand. I don't know if America understands what we're going through right now.
Wait, say that again. I got lost in the. Say that one more time.
So you have people that are so racist that they're fighting the people that are trying to stop racism.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, kind of like the whole, I don't know, police brutality at peaceful protests that are protesting police brutality. Like, we can't even win on the internet. We getting attacked everywhere. It's becoming tiring, people. It is really becoming tiring. And with that being said, a quick side note for a lot of people out there: get your SSL certificate, get your site and your servers evaluated by a cybersecurity team, and just protect your data and information. But malicious web requests in general were up 17% last weekend compared to the last weekend in April. Cloudflare reports the attack on advocacy groups were up a staggering 1,120 times over the corresponding weekend last month. So you're talking about almost a 1,200% increase of attacks. So if you don't think we're going through a revolution right now, if you don't think things are changing, this is a breaking point. Now, speaking of online, though, Netflix. When's the last time you was on Netflix, Toya?
This morning.
Did you see the Black Lives Matter category on Netflix?
I sure did. And I had a lot of those titles already on my list. So I was like, oh, let me get some more. Add them to my list.
Right. We watched Malcolm X yesterday. Well, I watched half of it. Alicia watched all of it out. Malcolm X is just a great, I don't know how I can even go to sleep with that much anger, but it's a great movie to take a nap with. So we watched Malcolm X yesterday. I always think about that Plymouth Rock comment, and we was talking about how both of us, when that movie came out, we both took the dictionary and did the same thing that Malcolm X was doing, where you went through the dictionary. Alicia didn't make it through A. I made it to C. So that was one of the things we had a good laugh about yesterday. But Netflix made a comment, and the comment was really simple. When we say Black Lives Matter, we also mean Black storytelling matters. Made a call to a couple of people that I know that have in the film industry, entertainment industry, that work with Netflix to make sure I confirm. Netflix may not have one of the best numbers as far as studios, but Netflix does have a very diverse community when it comes to the leadership roles at Netflix, one of the better ones. I know Black Hawk Studios, which was invested in by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in Atlanta. And of course, we have Tyler Perry Studios. But I just wanted to say Netflix is winning, and I actually bought a membership for someone in my family because I'm not paying for that other stuff. But I want to say congratulations to Netflix. Have you seen anybody else as far as large companies that have made a stand on Black Lives Matter that you didn't expect, or something that you saw that you were pretty much impressed by?
That I did not expect.
Yeah.
Well, I was surprised, I would say, by the Netflix block and how it was a forced experience. So if you have not turned on your Netflix, it wasn't just like one of the banners at the top. It was a forced like landing page where you had to choose to either go through the list or exit out. But it was in your face, and it wasn't like it was a roadblock basically in web dev terms. Who else? Amazon, they have an ongoing Black Lives Matter thing that they have on their content on Prime. Who else has surprised me? I don't think I've been super surprised. Like, oh my God, look at them. I don't think I've had that. Because I think right now everybody is just doing it in their own way. So it's almost as if you're not doing it, then that is something of a bigger thing, right? Because then that speaks to, so are you really paying attention? Do you really care about what's going on? And yes, some of the companies who are doing it, they may just be doing it so that way they don't get shamed and drugged on the internet. But they're taking the time and the energy and the effort to say something about it on their platforms. And you've seen a lot of people when the whole blackout day happened. A lot of brands were participating on that and shutting down. So it's almost sort of if you're not doing it, then who are you really?
And that's what I was going to say because I've heard some people give backlash like, oh, they're just doing it because it's popular and it's because it's in the moment. And even Sundari, I see your comment, Sundari, that some people are just jumping on the bad bandwagon. But this is my thing. I don't know if I have a problem with people jumping on the bandwagon to do something positive versus if that's what they're doing, you just focus on continuation and you ask
Right.
them to continue the efforts. I think one of the biggest thing is we always allow people to kind of come in and say they're going to make a change and they make an announcement, certain people get paid off or certain people get rewarded, then we kind of let off of them. We remove the pressure. I think the biggest thing for our communities and communities being all races is if these are the change that they're going to make, keep the pressure on them so that
Exactly.
they have to continuously and ask, okay, you've done this like with Netflix, you've done this part, but are you dedicating a certain amount of it to black creators to create more black content? Will you dedicate a certain amount of it to documentaries and more educational content? I applaud those that have at least made the step because there's a lot of organizations that won't say anything because they're fearful to do so. So at least they're actually
Right.
making the comment. So my thing is, this is all a this to me. If this was like onboarding a client, this is all this is. This is an onboarding client where the client is at least committing or at least interested in your services. The thing that I want to see at this point is what is your follow up and what is your execution as phase two, and then phase three is a report or some kind of inquiry or some kind of information to actually show what they've done with the information. And then phase four would be evaluation of that data and information and how to improve the situation. And then you continue to repeat the cycle. So I don't know if it's as bad as much of a bandwagon as much as I'm more upset
Yeah.
with the people that have fear to not say anything at all.
Exactly. Exactly my point. I was going to say the same thing because now it's about holding them accountable. And
Right.
there are organizations or collaboratives that are coming up and saying, this is how we're going to hold you accountable. How are you showing improvement? What are you doing? We're calling you out. Right. So that's where the main play is what happens next.
Right. And I think more people should focus on that. Like, don't always shame people because
Yeah.
there are a lot of people that are just now waking up. There are a lot of people that they didn't hear about, the cases in Miami-Dade with Kathy Rundle. They didn't hear about Tamir Rice. The things that you assume everybody was aware of, they weren't aware. But this was truthfully one of the perfect storms. You have people that are locked down. People can't go as many places. People are taking in more content. People are more concerned with what's going on, and this happens, and now you see cases that are hashing up, being hashed up again. Cases are reopening. This is what happened when people sit around and have time, and you got what 40 million Americans that are now, was it 40 million, right? That are unemployed.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you got. Let's just go with 30. I think the last number I officially saw was like 36 million. But when you have 36 million people that are unemployed, you know what they got time to do? Protest and find out what's wrong with this world.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and
And the thing too is, I mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
Now I was gonna say the thing too is that we've been asking for people to pay attention and for opportunities to be given and for wallets to be made available. Now that they're starting to do it, yes, they may have been shamed into doing it. Yes, there may be some guilt in it, but they're doing it. Don't
Mm-hmm.
say take your money back. I don't want it now. Like, no,
Give it
thank
to
you. And
all
let
of it.
me show you why you should have been doing this from the beginning and
Right.
help them to change their mind and to see that there is better, right? It's not so much you have to kind of meet people where they are and then bring them along with you. Don't sit there and shut down now because you don't quite like the circumstances in which it's happening. Like you said, things happen for a reason. Take
Yes.
advantage of the opportunity and build upon it. Use it as a catapult to create the future that we want.
And then a lot of people have been talking about it, and Joseph Patterson is in here, and Sylvester. Joseph made the comment that he was shocked by Nancy Pelosi's Wakanda salute, and Sylvester made photo op activism at its finest. You know, you can. I think those are things that are open for interpretation. I personally reposted it for a couple of candidates that I'm working with, but at least they know. The thing is, did you see a single Republican kneel or even pay respect to the issues that are going on? I understand things may never get. We don't do this show exactly how people want it to be done. But the thing is, we still show up and do the show, and we try to inform people with information. So, could Nancy have knelt without the kente cloth around her? Yes, but what would you want her to wear? Like, is anybody calling Nancy to say you should have had on a Black Panther T-shirt? Like, every time something is done, and it's kind of goes back to the problem I had with Charlemagne. Even if Democrats are in his eyes faking it and they'll say whatever to get the vote, are Republicans even acknowledging black people to say? The last thing I remember Trump even saying to black people was, vote for me, what else do you have to lose? So what do you want for? I don't understand what else people want to see. Like, if you're going to have the basis of demands, just make the demands very clear and very direct, and that's your start. But to just sit around and constantly complain without even a rebuttal of the plan of action that you'd rather see, you just sound bitter. Speak on the change. Have an effective communication for the change you want to see. Otherwise, it's beneficial for you to just shut the hell up, because you're not really helping anything. I already know how you feel. So that we'll just skip past the other one. Toya, I'm sorry. Did you have your topic, or did you want to go to this other pressing topic in the beats and music entertainment? Did you have your indie streets?
So yeah, so no, in these streets, and it actually ties directly into what we were just talking about, is the organizations and the entities that are popping up to hold people accountable. So 15% Pledge is a nonprofit organization that started popping up on Instagram. They have about 30,000 followers now, but they're all about calling on major retailers to pledge 15% of their shelf space to Black owned businesses. And they're looking for people to help them get to 1 million signatures and focusing on the concept of buying Black. So definitely go check them out. It's 15% pledge, the number 15, not written out, 15% pledge on Instagram, and get involved and help support those organizations that are looking to hold retailers accountable. So what we were just talking about, all those brands who are all with the Black Lives Matter, doing all this stuff, this is a way to not have it just be a moment, to make it into something that is lasting, that then pays it back and forward to businesses like ours who are looking for shelf space and opportunities to get in and to have these sort of situations to where we can use the momentum of what's happening right now to be seen. And you're seeing it across the board when it comes to organizations like I Fund Women. They just launched I Fund Women of Color, that focuses on brands that are launching on their crowdfunding platforms to help provide additional support. And it's being led by Olivia, who is a Black woman who is a part of the whole I Fund Women team. So there are great things happening right now. So again, going back to what we just talked about, don't shame, don't shut down, leverage the opportunity to get what you want out of the situation, and then hold these companies and organizations and brands accountable moving forward. So that was actually my In These Streets, which is what we just been talking about.
That's very powerful, and that's the thing. Like we said, make the demands and keep the pressure on them, but you got to take what you can, because bottom line, none of these organizations were doing what they're doing now 3 weeks ago. And so,
No.
and the goal is, can we get them to do it for a whole year? Like, you honestly have to set realistic goals. Can you keep this energy going for a month? Can you keep this energy going till August, till elections? Then after elections, can you keep it going through the end of 2020? But you have to understand, none of this was even happening. And the goal is now, how do you take the momentum and continue the momentum to keep things moving forward, versus complaining about what didn't happen before and what's not going to happen in the future. You have to just keep going forward.
Right.
And
I
maybe
mean,
that's
when
just
you
because of
think
the
about it,
mindset. Go ahead.
and I was gonna say when you think about it, when we started the show, one of the topics that we talked about was what does VC funding look like now that we're in Corona?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of funds are popping up. People are like, "Hey, I'm looking for Black-owned businesses to invest in." Yeah, you may be like, "Oh, that's a little shady." Where were you 3 months ago? But again, the opportunity is there. Are you gonna show up and be available for it, or are you just gonna be like, "Nah, I'm straight"?
Right. Or is the response going to be, oh, now you want to help me? I'll wait till I'm back in need again because it's not changing. This is what we're dealing with. Go get the money. The only thing you can do to make an active change is get the money till you get to a point where you don't need the money anymore, and then level up to a whole nother level where you can help somebody else that needs the money. The true freedom is financial freedom, no matter how we want to see it. So that's the way we should do it. Now, going on to entertainment, bad boy, what the fuck are you actually going to do? So, Cops, the America's longest running reality show, has been canceled.
About
Hey,
time.
uh, I'm
That shit
wondering
should
if
have been off TV.
I'm wondering if they're going to cancel Live PD, which is the spinoff of Cops, because that's doing pretty good. So, just for those who may be under 30 that are watching the show and maybe doing it. And Dante, that's there was some things on Cops that could be funny, but there's some information I should give you. The show has been criticized for glorifying the police for more than 30 years. The
Yeah.
Paramount Network itself has canceled Cops. The show had been moved over and was picked up by Vice TV because there's more men that watch it, and Vice then got bought up and that was transferred over to Paramount. But this is not the first time Cops has been canceled. The show on its earlier age of reality television debuted on Fox in 1989, and it ran for 25 seasons before being quietly canceled in 2013. Although the current public uproar over police brutality led to its cancellation, Cops has been controversial ever since the first moment that it's aired. Now, this is why I had a problem with South Florida a little bit earlier today, Latoya.
Mm-hmm.
In the New York Times review in the first season, which focused on Broward County, Florida. Listen to what I'm saying. The first season focused on Broward County, Florida Police Department. Critic John J. O'Connor wrote about the show's racist portrait of the war on drugs. So he had a whole thing on that, which came to this. The dominant image is hammered home again and again. The overwhelmingly white troops of police are the good guys. The bad guys are overwhelmingly black. Little is said about the ultimate source of the drugs, and nothing is mentioned about Florida's periodic scandals in which police themselves are found to be trafficking in drugs. Let me say that one more time for you. Little is said about the ultimate sources of the drug, and nothing is mentioned about Florida's periodic scandals in which the police themselves are found to be trafficking in drugs. Now, along with that, a former officer attests to dragging out traffic stops, thus endangering both himself and the driver because the producers needed to fill a 7-minute segment. Now imagine the anxiety you feel when you get pulled over.
Mm-hmm.
Now this officer is doing something that may take 2 minutes, extending it to 7 minutes while you have a camera in your face. Now, another part of that is an ex-cop recalls that subordinates who used to arrest 6 to 8 suspects a month. Listen to what I'm saying now. They used to arrest 6 to 8 suspects a month, started apprehending people in the hundreds in the same time period once cops rolled into town. So you're talking about, what is that? 700% increase that you're actually apprehending people just so you can make it on film and
Big
so you
TV.
can have content. And then the law enforcement has helped producers intimidate arrestees into signing release forms, sometimes by making repeat visits to their home because you have to sign a release form. And then some of those people said some of the stuff you probably like watching, Dante, when people were drunk or crazy or out of their mind and going through something. Some of them said they signed release forms and have no memory and no recollection of ever signing those release forms to be on cops. So sometimes we have to be mindful of what's happening to these people. Because I always
Mm-hmm.
wonder, unless you're going to let me get off, why would I sign off on being exposed on a TV show? So think about the
Right.
people that were bullied into those situations or probably lied to, like, look, your sentencing may not be as bad, or I can reduce this ticket, but you need to sign this release form and it's going to be running on cops. And again, just so those that didn't hear it earlier, because I see some of the numbers went up, the first season focused on Broward County, Florida Police Department and the war on drugs.
Yeah. No, I think it's all trash. I've never been a fan of Cops, any of those police shows. And it's interesting that you bring up Live PD because I was actually reading on Vox.com today that a new disturbing video was released on Monday by the Austin Police Department that shows Javier Ambler, who was killed last year in March at the hands of officers who were shooting for Live PD. He was a black man, appeared sober, and was unarmed. And you can hear him. So the body cam footage is what was released on Monday of this week. And in the body cam footage, you can hear him saying to them, "I have congestive heart failure. I can't breathe. Sir, I'm not resisting." And he's just continuing to plead and plead and plead. And they continue to restrain him and be aggressive. And then he ends up dying. And then what comes back is that he died of forcible restraint along with congestive heart failure and hypertensive cardiovascular disease. So the same situation. And this, again, is on cops who were filming for Live PD.
Mm.
So, yeah, trash, all of it needs to go.
So I can't even, it just, I'm just tired of hearing about it. It's just becoming too painful. But in other news for HBO Max, Too Far Gone temporarily. HBO Max temporarily removes Gone with the Wind because of its racist depictions. Following a scathing opinion piece in the Los Angeles Times by 12 Years a Slave writer John Ridley, in which he called for the removal of Gone with the Wind from HBO Max, Warner Media has done just that, but only temporarily. When it is not ignoring the horrors of slavery, pauses only to perpetuate some of the most painful stereotypes of people of color. Gone with the Wind will return to the streaming service with proper contextual messaging for some of those scenes and themes portrayed in the film.
How are they going to do that? Cliff notes?
So I see this and I'm thinking to myself, if you know it's damaging, if you know it's negative and you know it's a problem, why would you only remove it temporarily? Now, this kind of goes into, of course, what we were talking about earlier with people getting on the bandwagon. So this is what I mean by pressure to the TV beers that are out there watching this. This is when you hit back HBO Max and tell them it's not okay to make it a temporary thing. It needs to be done permanently. Because if you know it's damning content and it's hurting people to have to see this even being aired on your platform, that's like saying we're going to temporarily take down the General Lee memorials, but we'll put them back up with the right context. Unless that context states throughout the whole movie at the bottom of it, this movie is racist as hell. Or unless the General Lee goes back up and says this man killed millions of slaves and was all about slavery, and your rebellion and your Dixie flag was only because of slavery, you did not want to be free from the Union, you just wanted to keep slaves, unless the context is going to be as harsh as the message is, there's no context you can put out that's going to substitute the pain that these things will cause. Just take it down. And
yeah,
I don't know,
and I don't know
how
they're
they're going to do. I remember Gone with the Wind being on my TV once when my mom used to watch it, but it's not something I ever sat down and watched.
Mm-hmm.
Because the only thing I really want to see happen is in Georgia, they need to go carve Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and three other people into the side of Stone Mountain
Stone
and get
Mountain.
rid of General Lee off the side of that mountain. So they need to get to hatching and sculpting on the side and put some real people. Because I'll never forget, Toya. I went to have you ever seen the laser show at Stone Mountain?
No, I've
So they
never
do.
seen Stone Mountain up close in person.
So I went there with my aunt, and they do this laser show. And the laser show comes over General Lee and his other three little comrades or whatever that's with him, and the laser shapes the whole thing. But then they start riding off, and then as they're riding off into the whatever, they're playing in the background, "Proud to be an American." And this
See?
is the July. You're proud to be an American as you're praising a man that wanted to separate himself, went through tyranny, didn't want to free slaves, but that is what makes you proud. They're playing proud to be an American. All these white people are standing up and crying with their hands over their heart, praising this man that wanted to continue slavery. And that's what it means. So if you guys don't understand why that needs to be redone and the flags need to go everywhere. Actually, all flags in the 13 states of the South need to redesign their flags because they all have components of the Dixie flag in them.
Florida,
Not,
them,
I was
that
about to say, not sure if people notice, but Florida ain't missing nothing but the stars.
right.
I mean, it is just horrible.
Try
Florida,
to try to change it up if you want to, but we see it.
yeah, you can flip them colors. You can put it in Miami Heat scheme. We see what it is. Florida is just the worst. They just was like, just remove the stars. They'll be all right. They won't even
We
notice it.
gonna put a little circle emblem there with some stuff in it that make it look all tropical. They not gonna know what we talking about. That we was really a part of this. Right.
Now, if any of my clients ever called and said, I just want to add some pop to it, but keep it racist, that's the Florida flag.
Right. Right.
So Florida just expelled us, but I'll never forget that moment. And I was probably 13 years old, 12 years old when we was in Georgia, and I
How
saw
did
that.
you feel? First of all, being in that crowd, like I would have been like, "Whoa,
I felt okay. So there's a
get me
couple of
out,
things.
get me out."
Now this is the part where your young and ignorance come in. The only General Lee I ever respected or ever knew about was from Dukes of Hazzard. So I didn't know about racism like that. We were kind of sheltered from the history of racism because we
Mm-hmm.
were living right there in it. I mean, everybody that knows, yes, the car Dante only knew about the car from Dukes of Hazzard. That was the only General Lee I knew.
Even
So
that, Dukes of
I,
Hazzard was crazy. Listen,
yeah, it was.
the undertone.
I grew up around, at Panama City, at Rutherford, not Rutherford, because they would have got their ass beat, but at Mosley High School that was in Lynn Haven. To this day, there's still white boys that come to the school with the flags on the back of their trucks. Now I'm talking about the
I
flags on the
believe it.
back of their truck playing trap music though. Um,
See?
I grew up. I grew up knowing that there was a city called Southport that I shouldn't go to once the sun set. Had no reason to be in Southport, but you just didn't go to Southport. So I didn't know what was really going on, but it felt weird that people were crying to be proud to be an American because I've never had that patriotic feeling where it's like, oh my God, I'm so happy to be an American. When I was dealing with racism and I grew up in a city where there's still parts of the downtown area that I've never actually been to, where I grew up in a town where, I mean, even recently when I went to Montgomery driving back, you still have a fear that if you broke down, what could happen to you because there's no street lights
Yeah,
in where you're growing up at. So I never had that feeling of overwhelmingness. I was just like, this is insane that you're doing this and you're going through this. Like I've never pledged an allegiance to a flag. Because why am I pledging my all to a country that's never done the same for me?
that's like me when I was in what gifted in the second or third grade, and the teacher was like, "Oh, let's learn the presidents." I was like, "Nope, I'm gonna skip that assignment." Some just told me on my insides, "You don't need to learn that. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, like I don't need to know this. How about you teach us more? because we didn't learn that much, and I don't even remember what my history classes were like. I just know that all Black history was short in about 2 days worth of context, and it was pretty much only Martin Luther King and I Have a Dream. Everything else I learned was because my parents went to Tuskegee University, so I knew about Booker T. Washington, George Washington Carver. I learned those things, but that was because of my parents' educational background.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking like, what, and because you were 13 and it was a long time ago, I'm just thinking about what that crowd felt like,
Scary,
knowing that the people that were there was probably looking at you like, why are you here? You don't
scary.
belong here. Yeah. Like, I just wonder what the emotion, like, you know what I mean? Because when you're in those situations, and I remember when I went to Florida State, and when you're coming into Tallahassee, there's like some place like a car dealership or something that has like a huge Confederate flag. And I was like, what the hell is this? And just knowing that you're in these environments and you just never know. You just never know. And that's the thing that this moment is helping to get other people to see is just that level of just tense and fear and just crazy anxiety that you just live with as a Black person in America because you just never know
Right.
whether it's being pulled over by the cops or just simple stuff. Like there was a video of these girls shopping in a grocery store and then the manager was trying to accuse them of stealing lemons. And they was like, we haven't even left the store yet. But just because we felt a certain kind of way. And they was like, we got a basket full of groceries. How are we stealing?
We're gonna steal the lemons, but leave the whole grocery, all the groceries here.
They were like, what are you talking about? So yeah.
And now that you said it, I'm thinking about it, but it was always different because you got to think at 13, 13, 12. This is pre 1996 Atlanta Olympics, so Atlanta is not all pro Black. It's still. So I
Mm,
guess I was still sheltered at that point because it ain't nothing. It's still Georgia.
right.
People forget before Atlanta became what Atlanta became in 1996. That is still Georgia.
It
Period.
still is Georgia now.
Yeah. So I mean, you got a little bit of a shield with a little bit of wealth that's been created, but you are still in Georgia. Continuing on past that, just some quick bites for people. PPP has been extended. The new PPP law extends the 8-week period. The 8-week period is now extended to 24 weeks, and they have reduced the percentage of payroll cost rule. The bill enhances PPP by increasing the time from 8 to 24 weeks and reducing the payroll cost from 75 to 60%. So many businesses had, been funded in April and May and were not able to open back because of the legal or health reasons, and others just had a fraction of business demand they had pre-pandemic. So that's just some things. So people, there's still opportunities. If you haven't received your PPP, do not be afraid to go apply for it and see if you can get that, make it happen.
Good tip.
So another good thing, sports. I just want to make this very clear. Sports is weird as hell without fans. I was watching a soccer game yesterday for about 6 minutes, and just hearing them yelling and no fans in the background it just felt weird. It just felt like they was at practice. It
Yeah.
didn't feel like a real competition. So, with the NBA, just some information for people that may want to know. The NBA, they're supposed to be coming back. But this is the comeback, just so you know. July 31st, the 2019-2020 season resumed with 22 teams in Orlando, Florida at the ESPN Worldwide of Sports Complex, noticeably without fans. So they'll be able to stay in a little bubble and live their whole life in Orlando. August 25th is the tentative date for the 2020 NBA Draft Lottery. October 15th, the tentative date for the 2020 NBA Draft, with free agency starting in October 18th. And the regular season will resume December 1st of 2020 for the 2020-2021 season. So only 22 teams get to come back. Everybody's going to be harvested up into like little cattle to have to live in Orlando. So I guess Orlando will make a little bit of money back with some rental, because I'm sure some of these superstars will want their own little property and want to be able to go through certain regimen that they're used to. But again, it's going to be weird to watch NBA teams competing without any fans. So this is going to be interesting. But I will admit, I'm looking forward to watching something live in sports, because I'm about running out of movies to watch and it's getting tired. But if you have Apple TV, and you learn anything about the Me Too movement and you're curious about news and the stuff me and Latoya do with Dante and our team, you should watch the morning show on Apple TV. It is a very good show, very informative, little dark humor. Steve Carell, what's the Jennifer Aniston, just a lot of good people in it. It's a good show that should be watched. So I would advise everybody to watch that.
So maybe what they'll do with live sports events is like have a whole audience track in the back, like a sitcom, like a laugh track. So you'll get a little bit of some energy going
First of
on.
all,
It's gonna be interesting to see how it works.
They better not do that because Bill Maher does that, and I hate it. I hate it. It's one of the most annoying things. It just, we know ain't nobody there. It's cool. You're either funny or you're not. Now, the only person it really affects the most is John Oliver, because John Oliver really feeds off of his crowd. So he's losing a little bit of his energy. And that's another, if you have, what is that, HBO, Showtime? Which one is that? John Oliver? Showtime?
Yeah, it's HBO.
HBO. If you have HBO, watch that last episode of John Oliver. He went off. Very good. He has an amazing staff that does research for him, and he's so good at spewing off the information. So Toya, well, I'll give you a chance to respond to this as I
go ahead.
Dante, someone needs to hear this. You want to drop that graphic in as I prepare myself? All right. Just so everybody knows where I was going earlier in the show. Bottom line, silence is deafening. To the people out there that have the followers, the organizations, the platforms, and the opportunity to speak up with the injustices that you see right now, and that are not speaking up for the wrongs, and you're afraid of what the consequences may be for calling people out. This is me taking that consequence for you to call you out. Don't tell me or don't expect to receive a handshake and a hug when you didn't use your platform and it's time to speak up when we needed you to speak up the most. Do not expect me to be cool and to say, well, I just didn't know what to do, if you didn't take the time to reach out to somebody and call and ask, what could you do? If you are in a position where you are afraid, at least let your pocket speak up. But before you're sitting out there making the wrong decisions of being silent, you're absolutely doing the wrong thing. And the part of me that wants to make this really clear, it's okay to ask your Black friends, what can you do to make these things better? But what your Black friends do not need is to have a conversation about racism. You need to have those conversations with your white friends that are afraid to speak up, that are still probably racist or don't know how to deal with these uncomfortable conversations. Because frankly, it's no different than being a politician coming to the Black church talking about racism. We live it. We don't need to have that conversation. We aren't the racists. You need to have that conversation with the people that are probably racist, they enable racists, or need to stand up to racists. Quit having the conversations with us. You don't need to have conversations with Black people about diversity and inclusion. We're trying to be included. You need to have those conversations with white people. Call them out. You do not need to keep looking at those that are oppressed to fix the oppressor. Call your oppressor and ask them to change their ways. We need you to step up. I had an associate, I'll call him a friend, and his statement to me was, I don't want to call people out because I don't know their circumstances and I don't want to say the wrong thing. And I really don't want to call somebody out when I'm not sure. Imagine that you're scared to call somebody out that's not speaking up for what we're going through. If you have that much fear just of calling somebody out to speak up of what somebody else is going through, imagine waking up every day as a Black man and going through the thing that you're scared to speak up for. Imagine every day waking up as a Black woman afraid and going through the things that you're scared to just speak up for. If you're that scared to speak on it, imagine the fear of living it. Imagine the fear of going through it if you're that afraid just to speak on it. If I told you I was scared to say Candyman, imagine the fear of actually encountering the Candyman. You're scared to talk about it. Imagine what it feels to live it. I'm going to say that one more time. You are scared. You are fearful to talk about it. Imagine the fear of living it. I can't get no more clear than that. You're scared to post about it. You're scared to call somebody out about it. You're scared to make a company recognize it. Imagine having to live the fear that you don't even want to talk about. That's what's going on right now. That's where the anger is coming from. That's why people don't want you jumping on bandwagons. That's why we're mad at the foundations that aren't speaking up. That's why we're mad at the program directors that aren't saying anything. That's why we're mad at the newspapers that aren't coming to our side. That's why we're mad at all the companies that aren't making anything happen. It's not that you need to hear anything about how stupid you sound when you say all lives matter, because you've already told me what doesn't matter to you. The thing you're scared to speak of, I have to wake up and live it every day that I walk out of my house. Enough is enough. I appreciate RFL for speaking up. I appreciate Valencia. I appreciate all the people in our community. Chevron, everybody that's doing your part, I appreciate you. But everybody that's silent, you should know me by now. You already told you don't know where my money comes from. I'm not going to hide because I'm not dependent on grant money to live my life. Your time is running out. You don't have to call me, but you know who you need to speak to. You better start speaking up. Because once that fear turns into determination and anger, your silence becomes a target. Because someone needs to hear this. All right, Toya. Anything you want to say?
No, I think that was a great pin in our whole conversation today. That was a good way to just wrap it up and summarize. And it just speaks to what we talked about this whole show is showing up, being a part, realizing your sins from the past. It's okay. You may not have done what you were supposed to do in the past, but how can you rectify that and move forward and actively be a contributing partner in creating this new future that we're trying to build? It's not about us over them or you over us. That's done. Like, can we move past that? Right. Let's talk about building situations that work for everybody. And it's not, we don't have to live in this idea of scarcity and survival of the fittest. Like, that's bullshit. Yeah. Right? That is absolute bullshit. That's something that we bought into.
And I just want people to understand, this isn't for me and Toya. This is for Taco. This is for Leo. This is for our sons, our nephews, our nieces, and our daughters. Because we don't want them to go through what we went through. Because our parents tried to make sure we didn't go through what they went through. So the whole thing is to take care of the generation that this is us paying it forward. Because I'm more so worried about how you're going to treat Latoya's son when he's no longer cute and he becomes a threat. How are you going to treat my nephew when he's no longer adorable and you were wondering and you feared for your life because he was in your presence?
With no reason at all. That's the crazy part.
So, you can take us home. Take us home.
That's Mike.
And that's Toya, and this is Tech Beats and Bytes, guys. See you next week.